one thing for us is that when you're a musician, I'm very used to working in isolation and not really seeing people, because we spend a lot of time in the studio and a lot of time working at home. So in that respect, the transition was much easier because we're used to the isolation a little bit. But also I'm somebody that likes to go out for walks, likes to go out and hang out with people and things like that. So that part of it was difficult, as I'm sure it was for everybody else. But we were lucky in some respects that we were used to it, and also that we were busy. We had a lot of stuff to do because we did all of the artwork and the photography and everything for this album ourselves. So a lot of the time was spent doing that, really.
And you probably save a lot of money by doing it yourselves.
Yeah, I think it was more just we wanted to put everything into it. You know, we wanted everything we did for this album to come from us and to be very honest, you know, and it felt like a nice thing for us to do, and it was fun. You know, it was fun to learn, and it was fun to express ourselves in a different way. We have a tour in February that begins in February, which is 17 dates in Russia, which is the biggest Russian tour we've ever done. And that's something we're so excited about, because the last tour we did maybe 12, 14 dates, and this is now even more. So it's it's very, very exciting to get to explore Russia and to get to sort of meet people. And it's a great privilege of this job, really, that we get to travel so much. Yeah, I think club culture and dance music has been a massive part of my life ever since I was a kid, really. And going to clubs, and I know lots of DJs and things like that. And it's a big part of my musical taste and things like that. So yeah, it's sad to see, you know, when I first moved to London maybe 10, 12 years ago, there was a lot more nightclubs. You know, there was a lot more nightclubs, and they've all seemed to have closed down. And it's sad because it's such a big part of the cultural identity of a place, the nightclubs. And I think it's important that, particularly in London, it's important that they don't just keep building apartments or keep building shops instead of nightclubs, because they're important. And it's hard to know, you know, with the pandemic, it's hard to know what will happen, because nightclubs at the moment just have no help or no support, and the whole live music industry is struggling. And I know a lot of people that obviously that work in it, and there's lots of people unsure about what's to come. So I think when they do open, I think people have got to just go and dance and go and pay their money and go and support these places, because it's important. So when at the beginning of the lockdown, when we weren't allowed to leave our houses or anything, I have a friend in London who is a marine biologist who works with octopuses and works with studying their behavior and things like that. And she called me and said, look, we need people to look after these octopuses from the lab, because they need to get used to human contact, and we're not allowed to go in the lab. So, and she knew that I was very interested in them anyway, because I am. So I had one in my house. I brought one from the lab to my house, and I had it here for 3 weeks, and I had to feed it, play with it. I set it up in my living room so it could watch the TV and things like that. And it was fun. So I had a little friend for nearly 3 weeks at the beginning of lockdown, which was this octopus called Arnie, which was named after Arnold Schwarzenegger because it was so strong. You can still find some really crazy gigs, you know. You can still find some gigs where people go nuts. I was in, when I was younger, when I was maybe 18 or something, I was once in a mosh pit and I broke my nose. And I came out and all my nose was bleeding, everything. I had 2 black eyes because I accidentally fell into somebody in the mosh pit. So it was, but I enjoy it, you know, it's fun. Listen, all the history of Manchester and the bands from Manchester are all bands we love. You know, New Order, the Smiths, Joy Division, and also the history of dance music in Manchester, and even further back with bands like the Hollies, and the Bee Gees are from Manchester, which not many people know. You know, it's the history of Manchester's amazing. And I think the darker elements of those bands, like Joy Division, like New Order, like the Smiths, that's all in our music, you know. They're bands we love, and it's when we were there, when we when we were there making music in the beginning, those were things that were inspiring us as much as the place itself. And so it's all in our music. And I think also with bands like Oasis, you know, Oasis were a big influence on us because they wrote songs that were universal and that people could connect with, and that were ambitious. And so somewhere in between all those bands is definitely where we are. And we're just proud, you know, we're proud to even be mentioned in the same sentence as a lot of those bands. And I think this album is much darker, so it's probably much closer to some of those darker bands from Manchester. So it's, so yeah, it's never far from our thoughts, I don't think.